Welcome to the Otherworldly show. This is the Changing Times, Changing Worlds show that weekly we give you a hint of what we're going to be doing in
Chipicon is frozen up. Okay. We do sometimes lose her for a bit.
Telepathy.
Just looking for the event announcement here.
I'm loving this new app.
There you are, Chipicon.
Yeah, the app threw me off again. That's why I should never have updated that app.
Oh,
Anyway, so I have read many of the various and contributed to at least the Blessed Be Family magazine. Of the magazines that Ann Newkirk Niven has done over the years, as she is the editor, and which is the hard part, I think. Well, I don't know. You tell me, which is harder, editor or publisher?
Oh, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Are you kidding? I mean,
It
the
depends on-
editing is the fun part, frankly. Publishing is just all business stuff.
So it's what you're doing at the time. That's going to be the hard one.
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is I love editing. I love
Oh.
creating it. The publishing part is, the stuff that's all, the business stuff. I mean, publishing doesn't care if you're doing Witches and Pagans or, I don't know, Field
Time?
and Stream. Time doesn't exist. They went away.
Did they?
I think Newsweek also went away. Time may have come back. I'm not sure. I remember when one of them went belly up, I thought, wow, we're still publishing.
yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't realized Circle went away until I
Oh, yeah.
started I started trying to figure out how many I had read over the years. And I was thinking about, I remember Green Egg. I
Mhm.
remember a one that was called the neo-romantic paganism, but
Really?
it had a very floral script. So
I've never heard of that.
Well, it only lasted for about a year, and it always looked like it said necromantic paganism. And
I'd probably read that more often.
I was gonna say that actually sounds like a really good title.
but
Neo-romantic
that
sounds
would-
like I should be running around in a floofy shirt, with ties on the ends of the sleeves.
One of the pirate
but
shirts.
they were fun, and I think that they just had a fondness for Art Nouveau script and covers. But over the years, I started out, I think I started reading Fate when I was very little. And
Yes.
and still occasionally will pick up a copy when I see it. I am very
Yeah.
fond of the physical. To me, having a physical magazine is an important thing. I know that social media and online is the way to go these days, but I blush to say I only just discovered the Pagan blog site,
That's
which
okay.
I will have to go look at it again. But and of course we should tell people there's a Witches and Pagans Facebook page. So if you want
Oh,
to
yeah,
go
you
on-
could. You know what? Don't send them there. I don't post there anymore. That's the honest
Oh.
truth. Here's the thing
okay.
about Witches and Pagans and about our social media. We built up very quickly in that, and then Facebook took it all away. Because now basically, we used to be able to put up a post and we have something insane like 250,000 likes. It's just like idiotic how much. And now they'll show it to 4 people. So who cares? Because they want you to pay them money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of not, I honestly, I'm tempted to take it down, but I always put up when we put out a new issue or something like that. but I only have so many hours of the day, and I concentrate my firepower, frankly, on the paper magazine because we are the last standing of Witches and Pagans and also Sage Woman.
It's important to me.
Well, we also have it in PDF version for people who want to download it and read it on their, please God, not a cell phone, on a tablet or their desktop or their laptop. It works very well there. I do have people tell me they try to read it on their cell phone. I'm like, no, please don't do that. Simply because I don't have the programming skills to make it, cell phone, compatible and ready. That doesn't mean people can't try. Anyway, so were you going to introduce me? Because we just kind of jumped in here.
Yeah, I was introducing you, and then I got dropped, twice. So basically, yeah, this is an amazing woman who has, for some reason, chosen the path of editor publisher as a spiritual path, and is providing, as she has just said, the last physical pagan magazine that you can go out and get and order and have show up in your mailbox or on, I don't know, does it go to does it show up on I don't know, where do they sell magazines? Is it magazine stands?
Basically, as far as wholesale, it's Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. We are Sage Woman, but not Witches and Pagans is in Whole Foods for frankly no readily apparent reason, but I'm happy. Okay. And then there's little stores all over the place that carry us. So
which ones are still alive?
Which magazines or which stores?
Which magazines?
Sage Woman and Witches and Pagans.
Okay.
Those are those are the ones that are still around. So if we start at the beginning, I am not the first publisher of Sage Woman. That was a woman named Carol Shebear. In 1986, she published like 3. And then she handed over editorial to Linnea Weatherstone, who published and edited like 10 or 15. And then I started with issue 23 as the editor and publisher. I just finished and I'm about to send to press issue 97. And Witches and Pagans started out, Witches and Pagans has this very bizarre timeline. It started out as a magazine called The Green Man, which is supposed to be a male counterpart to Sage Woman, which did not fly. It turned out that the main people who bought Green Man were women buying it for their dudes, and dudes didn't want to read it because they thought it was gay. So that's it's what it was. It translated, it did what it did. So that became Pangaea, which published about 50 issues. And then we also, in the meantime, started a magazine called New Witch with the now embarrassing subtitle, Not Your Mother's Broomstick. And now that seems terribly ageist to me. At the time we were trying to be very hip, and it actually did really well in the I will term the celebrity paganism culture of the 90s. And then I also was doing The Blessed Bee, which you know well because you wrote for us, and that horse did not run. That dog did not hunt, because pagan kids magazines are about like everybody else kids magazines. There's crafts and there's stories and stuff, and there just wasn't enough of a market. And last but not least, I think I started a magazine called Crone, Women Coming of Age, which lasted all of 8 issues before that died also. So, if you take all the things I've published ever, it's hundreds of issues. I can't even count. And the ones that are currently around are Witches and Pagans, which is the combination of New Witch and Pangaea, and Sage Woman, which has been just trundling along forever and is now on issue 97. So they're both still print. They are also available digitally. About 89 to 90% of our readers are in print. So people really prefer that. And there you are. So, and it's what I know. Yes, we have the Pagan Square blogosphere, which is fun and I like and I enjoy. And that's great. I
hadn't heard of it. Now I have to check it out.
Yeah, you have to check it out. And so there's that. And what else? I don't know. We can talk about anything you want.
Well, there's the obvious question of how did you get into it, but you already told us you bought it from somebody else. And
but there is
the
a story,
follow-up-
but there is a story to that.
Okay, and then when you get to the end of that story, I want to ask how and why do you stay at it?
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
that
so-
one's super easy. I'll give you the answer to that one first. I'm too stubborn to quit.
Okay.
I have a day job now. I have since 2016. This used to be a reasonably profitable family business, and and we laid everyone off in the Great Recession, and that's what that is. We're still breaking even, and I work as although we may not be, and we may have to do a fundraiser next year because my printer just raised my price by 40%. On a per copy basis.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It was kind of a shock. But in any case, be that as it may. And yeah, I love it. I personally, I kind of feel this is my mission. This is why I'm still alive. This is why the goddess is keeping me around, is to do this. That doesn't mean I don't have other interests. Doesn't mean I don't have a wonderful family who I love and am dedicated to. But honestly, I kind of feel like this is my mission, and there you are. And the Reader's Digest condensed version backstory to how I came to all of this is that I was training to be a Methodist pastor because I have a backstory in Christian belief system. I got introduced to paganism. I went ahead and finished my Master of Divinity. So I have an MDiv from a Christian seminary in San Francisco Bay Area. And with that and $5, you can get a cup of coffee at a Starbucks. Maybe. Depends on where your Starbucks is. And I found the goddess and thought for a short period that I could actually square that circle. Decided no. Moved to a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere for a internship with a local church. Met my husband, went back and finished my schooling with Diana Paxson as my clergy mentor, and was completely out of the closet. They gave me my degree anyway. And then just sort of fell into this. I originally found Sage Woman at a women's bookstore in Santa Rosa, California, and called up the publisher and asked if we could print it, because at the time we were running a small printing company. And then eventually the magazine came into my hands as a publisher, and then it's been all crazy ever since. So, so I do this in my copious spare time at this point.
Well, I love the Tom Lehrer reference. I have been looking at you and how you have mentioned in several other interviews that you're kind of, the goddess is pushing you into doing this, and it just seems to me that your role as a producer of information for people, it sounds not is a ministry, as there are ministers who, as clergy could be ritualists, clergy could be healers, clergy could be soothsayers, clergy can be mystics. I think you may be in the category that the Druids would call bard. You are the one that provides the communication that glues the community together.
Well, I think that it's interesting that you would use the term bard, because nobody's ever said that before. But people always think I write. Some people think I write the whole magazines, which is insane. Thank you. No, please God, please Goddess, please no, because I'm the world's slowest writer. My editorial can take 3 days. I'm not joking.
I love your editorials.
Oh, thank you. And they can take 3 days. So that's why there aren't any more of them. Anyway, my point being here is that I see myself as a web spinner. I see that what I do is find all of these threads from different people, and they very kindly submit material that they want to share with our readers, and I weave them together. So that's kind of me.
Oh.
So, that's what I do. I really do enjoy it. I love it very much. All the stuff that a publisher has to do and dealing with advertisers is fine, and dealing with subscriptions is fine, and dealing with the distributors is not fine. That's not fine, because sadly, our distributor has also just said that they're going to change their discount to 68% off the cover. So that means that if one sells in Barnes and Noble, we're going to, for $1, which of course isn't $1, but we're using that, we'll get 32 cents. And since only about half of them sell, that means we actually end up with about 16 cents. So,
And how much did it cost for that to print?
at this point, $1.14.
Okay.
Ouch.
Yeah. So anyway, be that as it may, my point being is that the business side is what you have to do to make it happen.
Mhm.
And I do that because it's what you have to do to make it happen. What I really love doing is bringing people's stories to each other. That's what I love. That's the thing that gives me the chance to get in the flow and do this. And I'd be insane if I didn't like it.
Yeah, this is not something you could do.
No.
One thing, people who may not have been able to read some of your magazines,
Mhm.
and I hope it's still that Sage Woman is still this is the themes. I am liable to read your editorial, open the magazine, read the editorial,
Mhm.
but I am more likely to go to and put it in the stack of magazines, and then when something's going on in my life, go and read one of the themes, because that's what's going on in my life.
Oh, cool. I
So-
like that. That's we found that themes were a really good way to organize the material. Certainly in Sage Woman, it's kind of mission critical, because Sage Woman has a very unique format and a very unique literary style. It's 100% women's personal spiritual narrative with a focus on the
Mhm.
goddess. We don't do any fiction. We do poetry and we do reviews, but other than that, it's all first person. And because of that, it really desperately needs themes in order to not just be kind of a big mush. So, themes have been a really important part of the Sage Woman style all the way back to Linnea. And I give her full props for having sort of invented the Sage Woman literary style. And so it's just women telling stories. I often tell people that it's a little bit like a women's circle in print. So that's Sage Woman. Witches and Pagans is kind of like you're hopefully, it's covering stories. It also has themes, because we also found that to be useful. They're a little bit less, we're a little less tight on those themes. We're a little more, open. But it has fiction occasionally, although we haven't found that people really resonate very much with pagan fiction. So I haven't published a story in a while, but we have lots of interviews. We have lots of stories about places, about, just lifestyle, and also lots of things that people would regard as, ritual, or stories about the gods or current events in the pagan world. So it's almost like I take a different part of my brain when I'm working on Witches and Pagans than when I'm working on Sage Woman. People have said, and people who are on the West Coast will get this, and some other people elsewhere have told me this doesn't make any sense. But I think of Witches and Pagans as like a fish taco, and Sage Woman as a big scoop of a big piece of warm apple pie with ice cream on top.
Ooh.
So one of them, Sage Woman is a little bit of comfort food, in a literary sense. Hopefully, you always feel good when you finish reading a story there. Witches and Pagans has more edges and more interesting little things sticking out. And that's my fish taco thing. So again, I've told people have told me that they have no idea what a fish taco even is. So that's my West Coast lifestyle coming out, I think.
I've heard of them. But-
Okay, fair enough. See, there we are.
Like a taco, but with fish.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I wanted to ask you, because you've been around, it's been 30 years now.
Yes, it has.
How has your audience changed?
That's a really that's a really interesting question. I would say, first of all, it's gotten smaller. Okay.
Well, yeah.
And that happened as a result primarily of the loss of borders. We have always had, we used to have Borders. Borders was our biggest distributor and our biggest place that people found us. And when they went down, it was fairly catastrophic, frankly. If we hadn't fundraised a bunch of money from our readers, we wouldn't have made it. So we used to print double what we do now. So it's less. Sage Woman tends to be about who I am, which is getting older, but we do also still have a fair number. It's women. We don't ask for a blood sample or anything else, frankly. If you if you say you're a woman, that's fine. It's not like we're gonna check under the sheets. But we are firm about that. So that's important to our identity. Witches and pagans is everybody who thinks of themselves as in the pagan ecosystem. In terms of Sage Woman, I would say, other than aging, we're trying to become more diverse. We've just brought on a couple of, as a matter of fact, it's a little bit surprising how diverse we already are, because we have several columnists who are not out of the closet, and therefore they don't divulge much about their identity. Let's just put it that way. Witches and pagans is men and women. It still tends to be more women than men, and it's also gotten more diverse. So I would say, as far as witches and pagans go, we see a lot more heathens than we used to. Because that didn't kind of sort of used to be a thing, and now it is a thing. We recently went through, a couple of years ago, went through a whole harangue about, I'm just gonna say it, Trump pagans, and we had some amount of discomfort with us not being on that bandwagon. So that was interesting. What else?
I'm just trying to picture that in my mind. That idea
it's not hard.
That Trump pagan.
Oh no, that's yeah. I could go on for weeks about that.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating, and perhaps not the right not what the show should be about. I have noticed that you are kind of inclusive about Christians. You are not. You don't feed the wounded ex-Christian concept that much.
Yeah, well, we've never had a Christian. We haven't recently, anyway, had a Christian columnist. At one point, I was identifying as Christo-pagan, which I no longer do because JC has not been a major part of my pantheon for a long time. Although he could show up at any moment. He's the only God he's the only God I've ever worked with. I've never worked with another male-shaped deity. But I have worked with many, many goddesses. So right now he's just kind of off on his own thing, which why wouldn't he be? So we don't let people Christian bash generally in our
I like that.
I think it's just what's the right way of putting this? Unnecessary. And it's just when people go, oh, all Christians X and Y and Z and whatever, having been, coming out of the belly of that religion, I found out that it wasn't for me, but I have not found that as a whole, the Christians that I knew and still do are much different than the pagans. And there are human foibles that seem to cross all religious, and you can be a fundy pagan, you can be a fundy Christian, you can be a fundy atheist. I'm sure you can be fundy in any other religion we can come up with. And So we just don't feed that beast. It's not that if people want to do that, they can do it somewhere else, you know?
Mhm.
So have you then politely discouraged people who have who may have submitted and were bashing?
Well,
Or-
let me simply say that I get to pick what I want.
Mhm.
You know,
that
that's what the editor does. So it doesn't happen very often. Occasionally we'll
Right.
show up with a letter to the editor and they'll be going on about it. And I used to rigorously publish every single letter to the editor until I realized that that was not helpful.
Mhm.
Especially after, and the notable case was when I was going through a very rough time during the early years of Sage Woman and mentioned the fact that I worked with Jesus, and people kind of stuck me with
Mhm.
thorns a bit. The most notable quote was, "Thanks for poisoning the sacred well."
Mhm.
I published that letter, and I think that's the last time I published something that was that vitriolic, simply because you can get that. I mean, nowadays you can get that on YouTube. You can get,
Mhm.
you know, you can get that kind of thing anywhere you go. It's just not necessary. So we kind of try to save our dead trees for things that we want to actually promote
Mhm.
and that we want to actually support.
Yeah.
You know, because there's only so many dead trees in the world. And there's only so much, you know, petroleum or soybean oil or whatever it is. So it's also why we don't. It's also why we don't really do the what's the right? We don't get into witch wars. We
Mm.
just
Good.
we just frickin' don't. It's just not my thing.
Mhm.
Well, you're the editor. You can just say, okay, that goes in the pile.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering if there was. Now you have mentioned that the goddesses, and there have been apparently several, and serially
Mhm.
leaning on you to. Anytime you wanted to stop doing this as your ministry.
Yep. That's
And
accurate.
you mentioned Sigan. I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Yeah. I don't either.
Uh,
Sadly.
yeah, Loki's wife, right?
Yeah, Loki's wife, right. Yeah.
And who is just like an amazing goddess.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering if she has told you what she wanted yet.
Nope, she hasn't told me what she wanted yet. But she
Yeah.
actually may have been leaning on me for a other reason having to do with my family and one of my family members.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I think
God.
the thing that I think is most interesting is that my relationships with goddesses tend to be indeed quite surreal. They'll show up, they'll give me a job, and then I do the job, and then they leave, which is okay. You know?
But apparently they haven't found a replacement to keep being a publisher and editor and keep this alive. You have I think it's a sacred role in the community, because we are so separated. Frankly, I think it's wonderful that you have contributors who are still in the closet, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are in the closet and their experiences are that is important. I should get to a question so that you can talk.
It's okay.
But,
I will mention that the fact that we still have readers who are in the broom closet, honestly, is why we still spend literally thousands of dollars a year mailing our issues in privacy. They're inside of a poly bag with an opaque cover. It used to be envelopes, but those got to be too expensive. So people, and it doesn't say witches and pagans on the outside. It doesn't say Sage Woman on the outside. Nobody can tell.
Mm.
It's BBI Media, and well, you know, there you are. So, because a lot of
Yeah.
our readers they'll write us and say, please, do I have to pay you extra? And we'll go, nope, we do that for everyone. It's okay.
Yeah. That it is, because that is one of the major experiences in modern America. And so little bit scarier now than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that is definitely something that, you know, gives me pause, because, you know, when I started out, it was sort of just the kind of beginning of what I will term the pagan flowering, in terms of when people were starting to come out as pagan, come out as witches, etc., etc. And yeah, it's a little scary out there. If they come, they're not going to have any trouble finding me if they would come looking. So, que sera, sera, obviously. But people still need, I think people still need community. And this
Yeah.
is my way of doing that. That's my, I don't want to say mission. That sounds too strident. But
Well, how about
ministry will
ministry?
do. Ministry will do. It has certain echoes of the thing I did for the other religion, but we'll let you have it.
It's your service to the community, and I think
Yeah.
that's important. You can't, somebody's got to be up there doing the ritual, but somebody. I see myself as a healer and a soothsayer,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't do what I don't like doing rituals.
Mhm.
And it's a thing. Everybody has their own talents. But do you have any theories on why it's so important to have, well, other than people like me who like to go back to their old issues? To the importance of print as a magazine format as opposed to online?
Well, it has actually been, I believe there's research, and I can't quote it, so don't make me try. But I believe we retain things better in physical form when we're reading in physical form. I also think that it's a little easier for people to receive and to know that they have a specific thing that's, I mean, people still read books, right? I mean, books are a thing. Same thing. Magazines are a thing, books are a thing. It's I mean, newspapers aren't a thing, and that's probably because, I mean, physical newspapers, and that's because their material is very ephemeral. It's like soap bubbles, right? So if what you're trying to do is cover what happened 5 minutes ago, you're not going to get it in print. But I think that print magazines, if they are well created, okay. Back in the day, magazines were, 50% ads. You'd open up a magazine from somewhere, and the first, 20 pages would be something you didn't want and, don't care about. And we still have ads, but we only have ads from pagan publishers. And we have some fairly strict rules, actually. We will not put out an ad. I've turned down many, many ads, mostly for, send me $500 and I'll take the curse off you kind of stuff. It's like, thank you. No, you cannot pay me enough to do that. But what I would say is that print, it still exists for the same reason print books exist. It's because it has kind of a unique role. And yes, people still buy those old back issues. They do. As a matter of fact, we have to keep reprinting them over and over again because they call us up, or they write us, or they go to the website and they want that issue from 1987 and they get it. So I think that it's an enduring medium. I don't think that, like I said, if there weren't any books anymore, then we would look a lot weirder. The thing about the magazine industry versus the book industry, I think, is just that it's actually a complete house of cards, the way that it works in the wholesale. And I won't even get into all that. I'll just say that the margins are very ludicrously thin. And so a lot of people that used to do magazines just couldn't make it work anymore, and if I was still trying to get a salary, it wouldn't work for us either. I have a lot of privilege. I know that. I have the privilege to have a job here in my home over Zoom. Oh God, Zoom. I kid you not, I did 150 Zoom interviews between February and June.
Wow.
Where I was doing the interviewing for people for a study for the place I work. So I have privilege that I can do that, and that my kids are old enough that I'm not doing the mommy thing so much, you know, and my husband is supportive, and I get that. I understand that I'm very blessed. And when I get to Social Security age and maybe don't have to work anymore, maybe I'll be able to put out more issues, because I constantly feel guilty that I'm not putting out 4 issues of each title, but there's only so many hours in the day. So, but
Well,
we're gonna keep on going until I fall over, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm looking at your, you've had your pulse. I mean, as you read everything that's coming in, all these personal stories, all these articles, and in these interlocking communities, I'd love to have your observations of how it's, I mean, we did have that big flourishing in the 90s where suddenly there were large categories that you had a lot of. It was in bookstores. You had large collection occult sections in the bookstores, and now it's all kind of dried up. There's only one magazine. Well, your magazine's left, and I don't know. I have no idea if, say, the Pomegranate or some of those in England are still going.
I don't
But-
think that the Palm is if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's a esoteric and academic journal. And I
Oh,
think
is it academic?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
but there may be more than one Pomegranate. I believe that Pagan Dawn may still exist. I do not know for sure. I haven't seen it for several years now, but I suspect it may still exist. The honest truth is that it's pretty much impossible to make money this way, so it kind of reduces the number of people who try. But there's this old joke. I think it goes back to like Mark Twain. How do you make a small fortune in publishing? Start out with a large one.
The large fortune. But
So-
I just want to say, what can you say about the pagan community or pagan heathen, whatever, interlocking communities? What changes have you seen? I thought that we were getting more people coming out, and I think they're going back in.
Well, okay. I think that there's a lot of things going on. First of all, I think that the Instagram pagan culture is kind of harkens back to the 90s. It's just a different medium. There's a lot of interest in celebrities, in who's hot and who's not, in magic. Magic is a part of paganism. It's not all of paganism, and it ebbs and flows in how much that is something people are interested in. I would say that the two things that ebb and flow the most is interest in magic and interest in devotional polytheism. Now, devotional polytheism wasn't even a thing when I started. I'm sure it did exist, but it wasn't really a big part of the pagan culture. And now it's kind of blown up, and in a positive way, in the sense that a lot of people are interested. I would say the main thing that's fallen away is possibly interest in real life pagan covens and communities. I think that part of that is, the death blow to every single community that was COVID. We'll see how we come back from that. But I think that like every religion, it goes through its cycles. Right now, we're in kind of a place, I think, where people are trying to, people are trying to figure shit out, all right? Because honestly, it's a really crazy, things have accelerated and things are getting crazier faster. One thing that I definitely see is there's a huge uptick in interest in what I will term malefic and protective magic. From what I've seen, which, whatever, right? I'm just one person. Interest in curses and uncurses has gone completely through the roof. Not really. It was kind of I'm going to use a term. It was kind of fluffy belly when I started, and the goddess was sweet and the god was cool and it was all fine, and we whatever and did our circles and stuff. And now people are in a different space. They're in a different headspace, really. And practical magic has never stopped being popular, but I think it's more popular than it used to be. And of course, Sage Woman is trying to move past its 100% gender essentialism, and I'm doing my best, because that title might be generationally locked. I'm not sure. I mean, I would hate it for it to go down, but the honest truth is that the average person that reads Sage Woman is my age. I'm 62. And we do our best to keep it fresh, but it may not be quite as mission critical in this age of third or fourth. Are we in fifth wave feminism? I don't even know at this point. I think that as far as paganism goes, what we're seeing, I think, is a lot of interest in specific types of paganism. I see more interest in Druidism than I used to. I see a lot more interest in heathenism. Those are things that I think, and I got to get myself a Druid columnist any second now. I've been beating on John Beckett for years, but I just don't seem to make any headway. Interest in, quote, Wicca in the sense of Gardnerian Wicca seems to have waned a bit.
Mm.
Again, this is just me, and it's my little funnel, okay? It's not like I don't travel. I don't see people. It all just comes in over the transom and then whatever, but that's kind of how I see it. And I think that also we're going to probably see more of a rise in what I will term nationalistic or ethnic based forms of paganism. Okay. And I find that very fascinating. So there you go.
Yeah.
I am wondering when the nice gentleman with the dog is going to get to talk.
Arkenstone, can you talk?
Are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I just unmuted myself.
Okay, there you go.
Yay!
I'm just
Like I say, we
listening.
did have an
Sorry,
issue.
I had
That's
a few
okay.
family.
Oh, that's okay. I get it. I just saw you there and thought, that I hope that you weren't left out.
No.
Oh,
I
he's
was
not
just
next.
hoping that
If
you
you're,
guys
if you're
had-
interested, he's going to be the speaker. He's our guest next week.
Oh,
So,
very cool. All right.
yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
anybody wants to ask me anything, whatever. I mean,
Yeah, please. I was about to say that.
If you can put
But-
the link for the your magazine and your site up, I will get it added to my postal
Cool.
link.
Okay. Well, the sites are not the very best, but I will be happy to send them to you. They're just kind of out of date because I spent all my time on
Well,
the print. But that's
see,
okay.
that-
Don't
that-
worry
That's
about
okay.
it.
That's my job.
If you would like me,
Unless Jenny gets to it
also,
first.
if you wanna send me your address, I'll be happy to send you sample copies of both magazines. So send
Sure.
those to her, and she can pass them on to me, and I'll just send some right on over.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Well,
roll this back to you, how do you say your name?
Chipicon. The T is silent.
Chipicon. What do you think has changed?
I am seeing a lot more of the personal. People are less insecure about being solitaries. They're perfectly willing to say, this is how. I think that comes with being 50, 60, 70.
Mhm.
If you're in your 20s or 30s, you want to be doing it with a group. But if you've been doing it, you're just like, yeah, this is how it developed on my own. And that's what I'm going to, and I'm satisfied with it. It's between me and my gods. And I do think that your experience of having serial gods in your that you're working with, it makes sense.
Mhm.
And to me, as a polytheist, it makes a lot of sense because you work with the mother gods when you have little kids, and when you are working, if you're gardening, you're working with the growing things gods, and if you're in a protective situation, say if you were in the military or police officer, you'd be working with the warrior gods. I have never seen polytheism saying you got to pick one and stick with it. It's a lot more, okay, this is what I'm dealing with now. I did make you probably haven't heard, other people may have heard. I made a mistake once. I was at a conference and they said, we're going to do a dedication ceremony. Who do you want to dedicate yourself to? I wanted to learn how to spin flax. So I dedicated myself to Mother Hola. And I had forgotten that she is basically the goddess of housework. She,
Oh, how's that worked out?
oh yes, like I'm ready for bed. No, you've got dishes in the sink. I'm ready. I really need to go to, no, the floor needs sweeping. It's like, it's like, so yeah, I can be a horrible warning story for people. It's like, do not dedicate yourself to a god or goddess just because it's a lovely workshop at a conference. Learn from my mistakes. Not that Mother Hola is a mistake, but her lessons are hard but useful. But I really do think that it's totally reasonable to go to work with different gods at different points in your life. And polytheists,
I've never gone looking for them. They always came looking for me.
oh yeah, they come and
That's the
jump
same
on
for
your
me.
ass.
Yeah.
And the gods just seem to come in, look, poke around, and then say, and don't say a word and leave, except when I'm doing a strong spell. Odin and Morgan showed up once. I said, it's on you, because I don't know what's at the other end. And I had to say, call the spell off. And then there was a earthquake and a tornado that evening. And I'm like,
Oh, geez.
so I'm like, hey, I made my mistake, Chipicon, when I was 14. So, and since then, anything that's on a divine order, they kind of look, they peep, and then they go away. So I deal with planes and other spirits and local spirits, and dealing with even demons don't even mess with me anymore. So since I was 21, so
Local spirits I find easy, but I remember when I first started dealing with the heathens. I think they've gotten less uptight lately, but when I started dealing with them around the turn of the millennia, they were like, oh, well, you can't, if you're going to be heathen, you can't deal with Osiris or Apollo or, God forbid, the Virgin Mary anymore. And I said, excuse me, I don't let anybody tell me who my friends can be. And I really don't think you can tell me what gods are going to come and talk to me.
Right.
exactly.
But they are, they were trying to differentiate themselves. They were busy carving, at that point, they were carving themselves out a niche. And I think that may have made them a little bit more extreme in their demands than they might be now.
Well, I think also this kind of circles back to the way that religious communities form and how they have, how do you get a tight bond, and barriers to entry are important. Because if you don't have to really give anything up, then you don't really have enough of a commitment, and therefore you just wander in and out. And so new religious movements, which is kind of a thing of mine, have a tendency to put up pretty strong boundaries, especially when they first start, because it's important to try to separate yourself from everybody else, so that reinforces group bonds. So, for example, and this is from a completely different pantheon, people often wonder why people come door to door and knock on your door and try to convert you to whatever it is their religion, and we know which religion it usually is. And recently, the theory has been that it's not actually about converting people. Really, it's about reinforcing group bonds, because you go door to door, you knock on the door, so most people will probably not respond well. But when you go back to your original, group of people, they will basically love bomb you. So for doing this hard thing, so it's more about strengthening the group bonds than it is actually about converting people. It's one of the reasons that religions who have martyrs grow like wildfire. Unfortunately, we don't have any pagan martyrs yet, but you know, yeah, over time, people go, wow, this must be super cool if someone was willing to die for it. So it's a lot of psychology. It's not just myth. So I definitely saw the heathen thing kind of blow up. I think that it is a perfectly legit version of pagan generally. I do think that they have some unique challenges.
Especially now they're associated with idiots.
Well, some of them are idiots, you know, but you know, some Wiccans are idiots and some goddess people are idiots. You know, there's a lot of, I'm sure there are druid idiots. I just don't happen to know any, but I'm sure they exist.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's a very interesting time to be pagan, actually.
I do have a question that a friend of mine asked. He wanted me to ask, and what do pagans want?
What do pagans want? Okay, well, the question, I guess, would be, where was that coming from? But what I'm going to answer that is, we want what everybody else wants. We want to be respected. We want people to treat us with kindness and respect, just like any other human being. We would prefer that you don't knock on our door. Some of us feel a little more strongly about that than other people. I mean,
We promise we won't go knocking on yours, right?
No, that's okay. Feel free. You guys can. But you know, But if they, you know, if they show up with, you know, their magazine, I am often tempted, and sometimes do, to come downstairs and grab a copy of Witches and Pagans and hand it over and go, well, this is my magazine. That usually results in a quick exit.
And I'm afraid I get too many quick exits. I love talking to people. I love talking about religion, but apparently many of them are not allowed to listen about your religion. They're only allowed to talk about their own, and that's sad, because I would love to talk more about, you know, to have a give and take.
But that again is not
that's where I study the heck out of them, and then I ask them very pointed questions, and you'd be surprised how uncomfortable they get when they don't know the answers to their own beliefs. And I mean, it's like, I understand that some Jehovah's Witnesses are not against blood transfusions anymore, but there are others. There's a black 5%er community that's about 2 million strong, and they said only 144,000 is going to heaven. And I says, well, what's the rest of you going to do? You know, stuff like that. And it's like, and then they start talking about this is, oh, you guys believe that New Jerusalem is here, it is spiritually existing on a spiritual plane. You know what? I absolutely believe that, but it's like the acts, you know, it's of course the way Christian, you know, then I go on about, you know, how Revelations is 1800 years too old, but people's belief is creating it again, you know, and then their eyes start going, I shouldn't be that cruel, but you know, it's a way of like, here, thoughts.
Well, we could definitely spend the rest of the hour talking about stuff like that.
I'll shut up. You were asking about like what interesting things of late, you know, in pagan communities. The two things I know in the past 20-25 years is fascination with chaos magic, and then and I know at least 10 years ago, a whole slew of people interested in vampire magic.
Yeah, I think the vampire thing has hived off.
Yeah,
it was here, and I don't see people don't submit articles about that anymore. And in fact, I haven't seen a chaos magic article submitted to me for a long time now. It's possible they're all on Instagram and Twitter and wherever else, 4chan maybe. I don't even know. That would be a good place, actually, come to think of it, for chaos magic. Anyway,
I do want to ask the final question I've been holding off for the end. is what do you expect to happen next in the
Well,
pagan community?
In the pagan community, I expect us to end up with 3 or 4 big denominations. I expect that we're going to have some kind of a witchcraft denomination. I don't mean that. I mean that in a general sense, but something that is focused in that style of practice. I expect heathenism is going to be its own thing. I expect Druidry is going to be its own thing. And then I think that the Afro-Caribbean religions, which some people do and some people do not put under the pagan umbrella, are also going to be a major force. I think there's going to be some amount of consolidation. I also think that hard times call for hard gods. So I do think that we may see the return of more rigid practices and practices that require a heavier dose of devotion, because it's easy to, when everything is happy and relatively in good shape, then it's easy to think of the gods as being our buddies and our friends. But when things get hard, people have a tendency to think that their gods have decided that they suck and they need to do something to placate them. So I do expect to see some of that kind of energy running around. But I think that, whether the world goes is, I don't think that we lead so much. I think that we are in the stream like everyone else. So, for what good that is. Hopefully it's a good stream in the end, but
And as you've said, you're just going to keep on doing this.
Yep. That's my plan.
Until forcibly stopped.
All right.
Yeah. So there you go.
And I was looking for the Sage Woman magazine link to post that up there.
Well, they're really easy. They're sagewoman.com and witchesandpagans.com. They couldn't be any simpler.
It is easy, but I just wanted to get it up there, and then I got interested in the conversation again. In many ways, I am looking. I am not as good a host as I should be, because I keep getting distracted by the.
Don't worry about it. It's all good.
This is the part where I remind everybody to that this is part of the brought to you by the Changing Times, Changing Worlds Conference, which will be happening in November 7th to 23rd, Monday to Friday in the evenings and all day Saturday and Sunday. And we have a challenge on right now. We have several really, really good classes that people have submitted that we would like to be able to put in another track, but we have to get 50. I don't know how many we've got now, but 50 new registrations before the end of August. And if we can do that, then we can add new things. For instance, Diana Paxson doing a Sage session for us. So that would be so cool. But so encourage your friends to do it. It's only, you only want the live plus a month of looking at the recordings. That's only $45. If you want the year to go back and watch all of the recordings plus the live, I think it's 90. I've forgotten to write that down, but encourage everybody to if you can possibly afford it, because there will be no added cost. We simply will have the capacity to have more content for November. And meanwhile, Wednesdays we have Otherworldly, and that's free. So let's see, what else? Anybody else got any questions quick before we're over?
I do have the one comment we had from somebody in the past week. Lady Lyrian Up Tower sends you her blessings.
Oh, thank you. I know exactly who that is. That's very kind. Awesome.
She is lovely. She's over in the next town from me. So.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I wish her all the good things, and hopefully maybe she could reach out to me directly. I'm not super hard to find.
All right.
But super busy. So I guess that's it.
That's okay.
And And I looks like I'm about to lose my feed again. So
Oh.
quickly, thank you, everybody. Thank you, especially Anne. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for
Yeah,
inviting me.
nice.
I appreciate it.
And this is where I push the button that says stop the recording. There it is. Stop the recording.